Guy Madison's smile was sunshine poured into human form, so bright, so reassuring, that millions believed it held no shadow. They believed it when movie magazines told them he was the living embodiment of small-town virtue, when fan club newsletters insisted he spent Saturday nights drinking milkshakes, not martinis, when gossip columnists praised a courtly personality so flawless it felt carved from marble. They believed it because they needed to believe that somewhere in post-war America, a perfect hero really existed, someone untouched by ration lines, battlefield nightmares, or the murky compromises of adult desire. Yet beneath that warm grin raged a private tempest, the loneliness of a man forced to hide the deepest truth about himself, while headlines praised a version of him that never existed. The studio system, gleaming on the outside, was a labyrinth of contracts, surveillance, and morality clauses that could atomize a career with one whispered rumor. Publicists choreographed his every stride, teaching him to tip a Stetson at exactly 10 degrees for photographers and to dodge any reporter bold enough to pose personal questions. At premieres, he stood beside actresses assigned by talent departments, fingers sweating inside white gloves while flashbulbs popped like artillery. Away from the red carpets, Madison wrestled with memories that never made the fan books. Nights in cramped Navy bunks listening to torpedoes churn water, mornings on the family ranch when frost killed the orange blossoms his mother hoped would pay the winter bills. Secret afternoons in Palm Springs cottages where, for a few stolen hours, he could exhale and be seen, truly seen, by another man who shared the same invisible chains. He learned to translate desire into fleeting glances across crowded rooms, into coded phrases about quiet weekends and piano parties, into letters written in a hand that trembled with both hope and terror. This is not simply the chronicle of a cowboy actor, it is the anatomy of a double life performed on the biggest stage in the world. Tonight we ride through decades of triumphs and heartbreak, peeling back layers of Hollywood varnish to reveal the flesh and blood human being who laughed, loved, and suffered under the unblinking spotlight. You will witness the meteoric ascent from farm fields to silver screens, the marriages that served as camouflage yet carried genuine tenderness, the clandestine romances with titans of cinema whose names still draw crowds to revival theaters. You will feel the weight of silence that bent his shoulders, the camaraderie of secret networks that kept hope alive, and the bittersweet liberation found only when the final curtain had already fallen. Stay until the end and you will hear Madison's own posthumous words, raw, unfiltered, incandescent with longing, revealing how secrecy carved fault lines through his heart, and how, even in darkness, he cultivated the fierce, stubborn courage to love. Long before the studio christened him Guy Madison, he was Robert Ozell Mosley, a barefoot kid racing across the sun-scorched fields of Kern County, California. The Great Depression had pulled every dream taut, and his family measured fortune not in dollars, but in the sweet ache of muscles after a hard day's work. Evenings smelled of alfalfa and kerosene. Nights echoed with the whir of distant freight trains and the hushed prayers of parents praying the rains would come. Robert learned early that dignity wasn't handed out. It was wrestled from dust with bare hands. At Bakersfield College, he studied animal husbandry, believing his future lay in tending orchards, not applause. Then Pearl Harbor cracked the world open. He enlisted in the U.S. Navy, trading textbooks for a radio transmitter aboard a destroyer slicing through Indigo Pacific swells. In the humid hush between encoded messages, he confronted mortality and discovered an iron core of discipline he'd carry forever. During one hair-thin skirmish near the Marianas, shrapnel sang past his ear. Later, he wrote that the ocean smelled like hot metal and rain, a scent that haunted his dreams long after studio Klieg lights replaced battle flares. In 1944, a rare shore leave dropped him in Los Angeles. He wandered Hollywood Boulevard still in uniform, marveling at neon marquees. Fate stepped out in the form of talent agent Henry Wilson, whose eagle eye caught Robert's profile against a movie palace glow. Wilson asked for 5 minutes. Destiny answered with 50 years. David O. Selznick took one look at Robert Mosley and declared the name too ordinary for a hero. With a stroke of a pen, Robert vanished. Guy Madison was born. Overnight, he was hurled into a carousel of voice coaches, dance instructors, and publicity gurus who taught him to whistle on pitch, smile at flashbulbs, and keep his private life buried deeper than gold in Fort Knox. His first screen appearance, 2 fleeting minutes in Since You Went Away, triggered a tidal wave of fan mail so massive Selznick hired secretaries just to open envelopes scented with teenage perfume. Madison's laugh, critics noted, sounded unrehearsed and clean as river water, and the nation drank it up. Till the End of Time and Honeymoon followed, films soaked in post-war longing that placed him squarely in America's recovery narrative. The Soldier Returning Home, The Boy Next Door, promising stability in a chaotic age. Then came Lightning in a Stetson, The Adventures of Wild Bill Hickok. From 1951 to 1958, Saturday mornings began with Guy's 6-shooter salute. Children strapped cap guns to their hips. Barbers hung his photo beside baseball idols. The show aired on radio and television simultaneously, an unprecedented double-barreled broadcast that multiplied his fame. But each autograph session, each midday parade, reinforced the facade. Studios choreographed dates with ingenues. Columnists were tipped off to romantic dinners that never extended beyond the restaurant foyer. Underneath the starched shirt and genial drawl, Madison felt the vice tighten. He later wrote, "They paid me to be an emblem. I didn't know how to tell them the emblem was heavier than any saddle." To the public, his 1949 marriage to Gail Russell glimmered like a Hollywood fable. 2 luminous young stars promising forever beneath floral arches. Behind closed doors, alcohol and anxiety gnawed at Russell's spirit. She trembled before crowds, sometimes hiding in closets during premieres, while Madison deflected reporters with practiced charm. He stayed up nights soothing her panic, only to rise at dawn for 12-hour shoots. The emotional erosion was slow, but relentless, until the marriage collapsed in 1954. Newspapers cited irreconcilable differences, glossing over ambulance rides and pillow-soaked apologies. Madison quietly paid her rehab costs, visiting when cameras slept, leaving roses no one would photograph. 4 months after signing divorce papers, he wed Sheila Connolly in Juarez. The ceremony lasted 7 minutes. The consequences lasted a decade. They built a sunlit ranch house in Topanga Canyon, complete with swing set and vegetable patch. 3 daughters, Bridget, Erin, Dolly, filled halls with laughter that momentarily muffled the whispering press. Yet filming schedules yanked him across continents, and Sheila grew weary of raising children with time zones between them. By 1963, the Canyon echoes were replaced by lawyers' voices dividing assets. Though Madison never missed a school recital and insisted on Sunday phone calls no matter where he was. In Rome, he met Gia Scala, whose emerald eyes reflected both passion and peril. They were never officially engaged, but friends swore they communicated with a glance, the way poets use 100 lines. Their Roman evenings unfolded in cafes where Vespa snarled outside and red wine lingered on lips longer than good sense allowed. When Scala died under ambiguous circumstances in 1972, she left Madison her share of the Screen Actors' Pension, an act of faith that stunned industry insiders and cemented a bond without legal definition. As American westerns rode into the sunset, Europe's film frontier beckoned. Italy's Cinecittà Studios welcomed Madison with open arms and modest budgets. Under Mediterranean skies, he reforged his cowboy image into grittier characters. Mercenaries grappling with post-war disillusionment. Cavalry captains haunted by lost causes. Films like The Charge at Feather River had pioneered 3D sound. Now spaghetti westerns added dust, sweat, and moral ambiguity. Between takes on Spanish mesas, Madison sipped espresso while directors debated existentialism through clouds of cigarette smoke. Foreign press treated him with polite curiosity rather than rabid scrutiny, and the relative looseness of European social mores offered rare moments of exhalation. He could dine with male companions without triggering headline alarms, could stroll midnight streets of Trastevere, holding conversation, if not hands. Rome felt like a costume party where no one asked what you wore underneath. He would later joke, half relief, half sorrow. His European run also nurtured a love of language. He practiced Italian lullabies for extras' children and quoted Dante to startled makeup artists. Box office receipts were modest, but the artistic freedom was priceless, extending his career deep into the 1970s, while many of his American contemporaries faded into syndicated reruns. Beneath studio marquees, a subterranean network of understanding thrived. Actors threw glass parties, a code for gatherings where everyone knew every guest could break if dropped. Madison attended with heartbeat thundering, learning the art of the casual brush, shoulder to shoulder, a fraction of a second too long, yet worlds of meaning exchanged. Morality clauses loomed like guillotines. If a whisper reached a producer's ear, contracts could be torn and futures erased. Madison mastered coded language. He's a friend of Dorothy, signaled refuge. He swims at night, warned of scandal. Publicists staged photo ops with starlets at Malibu, while secret romances unfolded in shadowed bungalows of the Chateau Marmont. Even success offered no sanctuary. After taping a wildly popular episode of Wild Bill, Madison once drove 2 hours into the desert just to watch dawn with a fellow actor whose name couldn't appear beside his in any newspaper. "The sunrise belonged to us," he later scribbled in a diary margin. "But at 8 sharp, I was back on set, marrying the rancher's daughter on camera, while the director shouted for more passion. I didn't feel." Years after the cameras dimmed, Madison entrusted taped recollections and handwritten letters to a confidant who assembled them into a memoir released only after his death. In its pages, he unveiled 4 men whose legacies had long been sanitized. Ramon Navarro, the silent film seraph, met Madison for discreet retreats in Palm Springs cottages fragrant with jasmine and freedom. Tyrone Power, Hollywood's bronze demigod, shared late-night piano duets and conversations about faith, their laughter mingling with fear that a single photographer could silence them forever. Anthony Perkins entered Madison's life like a comet, brilliant, brief, and feverish. They devoured French poetry, planned clandestine trips to Big Sur that never materialized. Once studio spies grew suspicious. Perkins's nerves were raw as violin strings. Madison, older and steadier, tried to tune the harmony, but the melody ended too soon. Then Rock Hudson, whose grin seemed sculpted by American optimism, but whose eyes betrayed exhaustion from hiding behind it. Weekends at Big Bear Lake found them chopping wood, grilling steaks, inventing a world where their love required no alias. Madison recalled Rock's booming laugh echoing off pine trees, a sound he replayed in memory when tabloids later plastered Hudson's AIDS diagnosis across front pages. Leading a double life consumes more energy than any climactic chase scene. Madison's diaries reveal nights when he'd wrap filming at 11, step into a chauffeured limo with a contractually appointed date, smile for photographers until flashbulbs melted his corneas, then retreat to a darkened room and sob from sheer fatigue. Doctors misdiagnosed his panic attacks as ulcers, prescribing antacids for a distress rooted not in stomach acid, but soul-deep dread. Every handshake with a studio executive felt like a wire trip. Every locker room joke about sissies was a knife sliding between ribs. Yet amid the terror, slivers of joy persisted. A note slipped under a dressing room door, fragrance clinging to its fold, a quick kiss stolen behind a soundstage wall while grips pushed dolly tracks the other way. Madison wrote, "They tried to convince us love was a sin against box office receipts, but love is stubborn. It keeps blooming even in concrete." Those clandestine blossoms cost him restful sleep and likely shortened his life. Yet without them, he believed he would have perished much sooner, not in body, but in spirit. By the late 1970s, Madison's lungs, scorched by decades of cigarette smoke and on-set dust, began to fail. He retreated to a ranch in Morongo Valley, where wind whistled through Joshua trees and nights glittered with desert stars, unspoiled by city glare. Neighbors remember seeing him at dawn wrapped in a Navajo blanket, gazing across purple foothills as if reading a private scripture. He built fences, nurtured citrus groves, and taught grandchildren to ride ponies named after silent film legends. Old co-stars visited for chili cookouts. They reminisced about prop pistols that misfired and love scenes redubbed to skirt sensors. Sometimes Madison pulled out scrapbooks, but only the pages safe for public eyes. The rest he kept in a worn green trunk at the foot of his bed, locked, as always, by habit. emphysema tightened its grip until every breath became a negotiation. On February 6, 1996, in Palm Springs Desert Hospital, Guy Madison exhaled for the last time. A modest service at Forest Lawn gathered cowboys in 10-gallon hats beside gray-haired men who once danced with him in secret. Don Burnett's eulogy called him a man who lasted fame yet never lost hold of grace, a tribute sealed by the hush of those who knew the fuller story but honored the timing of its telling. Guy Madison's legacy is more than the echo of a TV theme or the glint of a toy badge. It is a living testament to resilience, a case study in how a single life can illuminate the hidden corridors of an entire culture. Strip away the celluloid hero, and you find a son of the Depression who clawed his way from drought-starved orchards to Hollywood marquees, a sailor who survived Pacific firestorms, a father who read bedtime stories over static-riddled phone lines from foreign hotel rooms, and a man who carried secret love letters next to his heart like contraband scripture. His posthumous confessions stitch invisible threads through the tapestry of film history, reminding us that behind every manufactured myth stands a human heart pulsing with complexities press agents cannot spin away. They challenge us to reconsider the smiling publicity photos of yesteryear and to ask how many other truths were buried under studio asphalt. They add depth to the history of LGBTQ+ struggle, showing that the battle for dignity was waged not only in protest marches, but also in whispered midnight promises and in silent acts of courage, like slipping a partner's name into a hidden will. Madison's story also offers a mirror to the present. It asks whether today's audiences can hold space for heroes who are simultaneously brave and vulnerable, whether we can celebrate success while acknowledging the bruises earned along the way, whether we are willing to dismantle closets wherever they still stand, in entertainment, in politics, in our own homes. His life warns that applause can be a prison when authenticity is the price of admission, yet it also proves that truth, once spoken, reverberates far beyond the grave, shaking loose the rusted hinges of old secrets so fresh air can rush in. So when you hear the distant crack of a TV cowboy's whip, or see desert sun glint off a silver screen revolver, remember the man who bore that weapon, who rode for justice on screen and battled for authenticity off screen. Remember the lovers who stood beside him in shadowed doorways, the actresses who shouldered their own private wars, the fans who sensed something unspoken in their idol's eyes and loved him anyway. Remember, most of all, that history advances every time a single human being dares to live, and eventually to tell their whole truth. Because truth never reins itself in. It gallops forward, kicking up dust, clearing the horizon, making room for every kind of love to ride freely beneath an ever-widening sky.